A very interesting thing happened to me recently. I got a phone call from a 19-year-old kid, called me, somehow got my phone number, somehow found out that I was a business coach, a business mentor, and got my number from someone, who knows, get this text message, introduces himself, tells me all about his business, and then says, can I get some advice from you? So I happen to be sitting home doing nothing. Family wasn't home at the time. So I messaged him and I said, I'll tell you what, I'll meet you. I'll give you advice if you can meet me within the next 30 minutes. Because I figured there's no way he's going to meet me in the next 30 minutes. I get so many calls and stuff like that. And then I spend my time giving advice, which I love to do. It's become a part of who I am. It's become a part of my everyday life. But there's almost nothing worse when you sit down and you really get connected to someone emotionally to help their business, and you pour into them and you hear their story, and then you find out they didn't do anything. So I was feeling that way when I got this random message, and I thought I'd challenge this kid and say, you can meet me within the next 30 minutes. I will coach you. I will teach you. And the kid texted me back. He said, where? So I just wrote the mall, right? Because the mall is about 10 minutes from my house. So he said, okay, I'll be there in 30 minutes. And I said, okay, all right, I'll see you in the food court. And so I drive to the mall, and he's sitting there with a pen and paper ready to receive, right? So, and let me tell you what happened. So I sit down, I say, write this down, because the kid had 0 clients. He was starting a pressure washing business, and he had no idea how to start. He had a little kind of like rinky-dink washer that someone gave him. A pressure washer is not even really that good. And he had no idea how to get clients. So I said, write this down. This is what you're going to do. How much money do you want to make in a month to support your family? And he wrote the number down. I said, how many houses do you have to wash to make that money? He just took it, divided it by however many houses he has to do per month. I said, starting tomorrow, you are going to go out and you are going to start knocking on doors until you get the number of houses that you need to make for that month or that week. And he said, okay, all right. I said, all right. I didn't expect him to kind of pick up on it that fast. And he said, okay. I said, I'll check in with you, or you check in with me. So boom, we left. It was about a 30-minute meeting. I went back home, forgot all about it. 2 days later, I get a text message from this kid. Can you talk? So I call him. He says, hey, Mr. Mike, I sold $1,600 worth of pressure washing services the next day after I met you, the next day. And so here I am, so excited. I'm going to tell you why I tell you this story is you have no idea how many established companies that I've coached where I've said something and there's always an excuse. Oh, well, I can't do this because of this. I can't do this because of this. I can't do this because of this. And this kid who's 19 years old, no business experience, no tools, no knowledge, no information, just takes it, does it, and starts generating enough work to support his family, right? So in his case, it was reverse. He didn't have a wife and kids. He was supporting his mom and his dad. So wonderful story. And this happens all the time. The big businesses that are doing well, that are filling their calendar, it's almost like a catch-22 or some kind of paradox. Companies that calendars are full, they're making money, they're making profit, they will listen to anything they can listen to. They will spend their time learning business things and doing them. No excuses. The companies that are a little smaller or even decent size that have no jobs on the schedule, that are in the slow season, they're the ones that make excuses. So you see what's happening here. Companies that are busy and have jobs on the schedule have it for a reason. Now, this kid is a perfect example of what it means to be hungry. This kid had no understanding of business whatsoever. So he doesn't know what's supposed to be done and what's not supposed to be done. So when he heard some advice, he assumed in his mind, this is how it's done. And he did it without question. A lot of times, more established businesses, what happens is because they don't want to do certain things, cold calling, door knocking, reaching out to people, sending out text messages, all of that stuff, because they don't like to do it. I don't like to cold call. So I will make excuses on why I shouldn't have to do that. Because oftentimes procrastination or excuses are really hidden behind fears and doubts, right? A lot of times we procrastinate because we don't want to do something. And this happens in this situation where a lot of businesses whose schedules are empty, if you say run some Facebook ads, then they'll run them and spend the money because it's easy, right? But if you say, hey, start calling your customers, call them up, remind them, ask them if they need services. Well, no one wants to cold call, so you'll make an excuse. Well, I don't want to cold call because people in my town don't like cold calling. Excuses, excuses, excuses. Door knocking. People in my town don't like door knocking. I can guarantee you there's someone in your town doing it with success. So what we have to do is recognize in ourselves when we don't want to do something and realize that the reason we're procrastinating is not because of the excuse we're giving, because it doesn't work, because it does this, because it does this. Insert your excuse. That the actual reason we're making excuses is because we're afraid or we don't want to do it or it takes too much work. Meanwhile, a really hungry person, a really hungry business owner will do it and find success in it. And here's this kid just doing what he's told, and he's knocking, and the next day he's knocking, next thing he's knocking. He's filling his schedule, making good money off of one tip, right? Now, here's the thing. So the kid follows up with me, and I talk to him about that. I'm so excited. I say, hey, get back with me. Let's meet up again. He says, yeah, let's definitely meet up. Never calls me again. Never does it, right? So hungry on one sense because, hey, it worked. Now he's making money. Boom, 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 boom. A couple months goes by, and I happen to see the kid again randomly. And I say, hey, how is it going, man? How is the pressure washing business going? Oh, well, I haven't went out and door knocked or done anything in a while. I said, oh, so you're done pressure washing? He said, no, I really need it. My mom and dad, we could really pay some bills. So how come you haven't went out and door knocked? Oh, I just kind of stopped doing it. I got really busy pressure washing, and basically he got complacent. And that's the next thing when we talk about business and getting leads, getting jobs on the schedule, getting work on the schedule is, number one, complacency or excuses is the reason why we don't do it, right? We have our own head trash where we think, oh, this won't work, and I don't want to do this because of this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this, right? Which is why the owner is always the bottleneck of the company. So you got to get yourself out of the way, make yourself better, listen to things like this, and then decide, because a lot of times we listen to podcasts and we get inspired and we connect to it and say, oh, man, that's totally me. But what do you do after that? So number one, get yourself out of the way. When you listen to a podcast or you read a book and you get some really, really good business advice, pick one thing and then do it. Don't listen to another podcast. Don't read another book until you do at least one thing that you read out of that podcast, right? Get yourself out of the way. Number two, the number one biggest thing after complacency is consistency. 9 times out of 10, when you see someone advertising, they're advertising because they need money. They need work. Massive corporations that are really good, like Nike, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, when you see them advertising, it's because they're consistent. When you see smaller companies advertise, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, local appliance stores, you start seeing those billboards pop up, you start seeing those radio ads. That's not because they're consistent. That's because the bills need to be paid. And that's no way to operate. Can you imagine if that kid just kept knocking and knocking and knocking for months and months and months and months and months? What we do is we get really excited about something, or we get really desperate about something, and it pushes us past our complacency because we don't have a choice. But then once we get comfortable again, we lose our consistency. So there's a lot of C's going on here, right? Complacency, comfortability, consistency. We tend to lose that consistency, and there's only a few ways to keep consistency. When what we do is driven based off of our emotions or our situation or our circumstance, then we will only do that thing while the circumstance is still there or while the emotions are still there. So if you're desperate and it pushes you to work a little harder, when you get to the point of not being desperate anymore, you won't work any harder because that was driven by that. If you get desperate and it forces you to do something and then now you're no longer desperate, you won't do it because it was driven by that. That's why you see in a lot of marriages when the marriage is complacent and then things go really bad, the divorce word starts popping up, then the couple will really work towards their communication. They'll work towards, being nicer to each other. And then when the marriage gets better, they'll slip back because it was driven by a desperation. It was driven by an emotion. We have to rewire our brains to sort of undo our actions from our emotions. Right now, emotions are always going to be there because we're emotional beings. But once an emotion pushes us to something and pushes us to make a decision, then we need to write down something that allows us to keep consistent at it, right? So there's a scripture in Deuteronomy in the Bible where it says, write the scriptures on your wall, write it on your hand, put it on your jewelry so that you never forget. So it's the same thing in business where if you say, man, the schedule is empty, I really need to do something about this. So you get really desperate because the bills are paid. It forces you to start calling your customers, forces you to make text message campaigns, forces you to advertise on Facebook, or not even advertise. It forces you to make posts. You start getting jobs from it. While you're in that situation, that's when you need to, before you just go and start doing it, get a piece of paper and write down, post on these Facebook pages every Monday. Send these text messages once per week. Send an email once per month. Put it down, put it up somewhere, and every time you come to work and you go through your workflow, then when it comes that time and that day to do that, you'll do it. So that when the emotions come down, you're looking and you have your workflow and you know what to do. That's how you keep yourself consistent. And those types of workflows are what the bigger, more established companies, and if you're talking about HVAC, plumbing, electrical, those companies that are filling the books constantly, they're always busy no matter what, it's because they found a way to write those things down and assign it to someone. If you're a one-man show company, then you assign it to yourself. But you put Monday from 8 to 10, I'm going to do this. Monday from 10 to 12, I'm going to do this. Monday from this to this. Then Tuesday, boom, boom, boom. So when they get up in the morning, they look at what they have to do, and that runs through the entire year. So their blockout time manages them, not whatever comes during the day. And that's typically what happens, especially for HVAC companies, is in the busy time in the summer, then you're just busy, 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 busy. You're not doing any of the things that you know to do. And then when the slow time comes, we're slow. Instead of, hey, I don't care how busy it is. From 7 to 7:30 in the morning, I have to post on Facebook every day. So from 7 to 7:30, my phone is off. I post, and then from 7:30 to 8:30, then I'm going through yesterday's job. So you have to schedule your time out like that. So let's get rid of complacency, and let's start moving into consistency. Thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of it.